Santiago de Compostela is the capital of the autonomous community of Galicia in northwestern Spain. The city has its origin in the shrine of Saint James the Great, now the city's cathedral, as destination of the Way of St. James, a leading Catholic pilgrimage route originated in the 9th century. In 1985 the city's old town was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Toponym: Santiago is the local Galician evolution of Vulgar Latin sanťjaɣo St. James. According to legend, Compostela derives from the Latin komposઃtɛla. It seems unlikely, however, that this phrase could have yielded the modern Compostela under normal evolution from Latin to medieval Galician. Other etymologies derive the name from Latin compositum, local Vulgar Latin komposʻtɛla, meaning burial ground, or simply from Latin komposઃtɛla, meaning the well-composed one. Other sites in Galicia share this toponym, akin to Compostela in the province of Galicia. The city. The cathedral borders the main plaza of the old and well-preserved city. Legend has it that the remains of the Apostle James were brought to Galicia for burial. In 813, according to medieval legend, the light of a bright star guided a shepherd who was watching his flock at night to the burial site in Santiago de Compostela. The shepherd quickly reported his discovery to the Bishop of Iria, Bishop Teodomiro. The bishop declared that the remains were those of the Apostle James and immediately notified King Alfonso II in Oviedo. To honor St. James, the cathedral was built on the spot where his remains were said to have been found. The legend, which included numerous miraculous events, enabled the Catholic faithful to bolster support for their stronghold in northern Spain during the Christian Crusades against the Moors, but also led to the growth and development of the city. Along the western side of the Praça do Obradoiro is the elegant 18th-century Paço de Raxoi, now the City Hall. Across the square is the Paço de Raxoi, the town hall and seat of the Galician Xunta, and on the right from the cathedral steps is the Hostel dos Reis Católicos, founded in 1492 by the Catholic monarchs, Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon, as a pilgrim's hospice. The Obradoiro force section aid of the cathedral, the best known, is depicted on the Spanish euro coins of 1 cent, 2 cents, and 5 cents. Santiago is the site of the University of Santiago de Compostela, established in the early 16th century. The main campus can be seen best from an alcove in the large municipal park in the center of the city. Within the old town there are many narrow winding streets full of historic buildings. The new town all around it has less character, though some of the older parts of the new town have some big flats in them. Santiago de Compostela has a substantial nightlife. Both in the new town and the old town, a mix of middle-aged residents and younger students maintain a lively presence until the early hours of the morning. Radiating from the center of the city, the historic cathedral is surrounded by paved granite streets, tucked away in the old town, and separated from the newer part of the city by the largest of many parks throughout the city, Parque da Alameda. Santiago gives its name to one of the 4 military orders of Spain, Santiago, Calatrava, Alcántara and Montesur. One of the most important economic centers in Galicia, Santiago is the seat for organizations like Association for Equal and Fair Trade Pangaria. Climate. Under the CAR paragraph PPEN climate classification, Santiago de Compostela has a humid oceanic climate, with dry summers, so sometimes being classified as a CSB climate, similar to the coasts of Oregon, Washington and Vancouver Island, in the western coast of North America. The prevailing winds from the Atlantic and the surrounding mountains combine to give Santiago some of Spain a unregistered trademark's highest rainfall, about 1,545 mm annually. The climate is mild, frosts are common only in December, January and February, with an average of just 8 days per year, while snow is rare. Temperatures over 30 degrees Celsius are exceptional. Population. The population of the city in 2012 was 95,671 inhabitants, while the metropolitan area reaches 178,695. In 2010 there were 4,111 foreigners living in the city, representing a 4.3% of the total population. The main nationalities are Brazilians, Portuguese and Colombians. By language, according to 2008 data, 21% of the population always speak in Galician, 15% always speak in Spanish and the rest use both interchangeably. History. The area of Santiago de Compostela was a Roman cemetery by the 4th century and was occupied by the CB in the early 400s, when they settled in Galicia and Portugal during the initial collapse of the Roman Empire. The area was later attributed to the bishopric of Iria Flavia in the 6th century, in the partition usually known as Parochia Elshavorum, ordered by King Theodemir. In 585, the settlement was annexed along with the rest of CB kingdom by Leovigild as the 6th province of the Visigothic kingdom. Possibly raided from 711 to 739 by the Arabs, the bishopric of Iria was incorporated into the kingdom of Asturias c. 750. At some point between 818 and 842, during the reign of Alfonso II of Asturias, Bishop Theodemir of Iria claimed to have found some remains which were attributed to Saint James the Greater. This discovery was accepted in part because the Pope and Charles Magny who had died in 814 had acknowledged Asturias as a kingdom and Alfonso II as king, and had also crafted close political and ecclesiastic ties. Around the place of the discovery a new settlement and centre of pilgrimage emerged, which was known to the author Usuard in 865 and which was called Komposઃtela by the 10th century. The cult of Saint James of Compostela was just one of many arising throughout northern Iberia during the 10th and 11th centuries, as rulers encouraged their own region-specific cults, such as Saint Eulalia in Oviedo and Saint Emilian in Castile. After the centre of Asturian political power moved from Oviedo to Lecubden in 910, Compostela became more politically relevant, and several kings of Galicia and of Lecubden were acclaimed by the Galician noblemen and crowned and anointed by the local bishop at the cathedral, among them Orda ±04 in 958, Bermudo II in 982, and Alfonso VII in 1111, by which time Compostela had become capital of the Kingdom of Galicia. Later, 12th-century kings were also sepulchred in the cathedral, namely Fernando II and Alfonso IX, last of the kings of Lecubden and Galicia before both kingdoms were united with the Kingdom of Castile. During this same 10th century and in the first years of the 11th century Viking raiders tried to assault the town. Galicia is known in the Nordic sagas as Jacobland or Galzeland, and Bishop Sicenan II, who was killed in battle against them in 968, ordered the construction of a walled fortress to protect the sacred place. In 997 Compostela was assaulted and partially destroyed by Ibn Amir, Andalusian leader accompanied in his raid by Christian lords, who all received a share of the booty. However, the Andalusian commander showed no interest in the alleged relics of St. James. In response to these challenges Bishop Crisconio, in the Mida 11th century, fortified the entire town, building walls and defensive towers. According to some authors, by the middle years of the 11th century the site had already become a pan-European place of peregrination, while others maintained that the cult to St. James was before 11th–12th centuries an essentially Galician affair, supported by Asturian and Leonese kings to win over faltering Galician loyalties. Santiago would become in the course of the following century a main Catholic shrine second only to Rome and Jerusalem. In the 12th century, under the impulse of Bishop Diego Jalmarez, Compostela became an archbishopric, attracting a large and multinational population. Under the rule of this prelate, the townspeople rebelled, headed by the local council, beginning a secular tradition of confrontation by the people of the site who fought for self-government against the local bishop, the secular and jurisdictional lord of the city and of its fief, the semi-independent Terra de Santiago. The culminating moment in this confrontation was reached in the 14th century, when the new prelate, the Frenchman Bar Copyright Renger de Landor, treacherously executed the councillors of the city in his castle of A Rochefort, after inviting them for talks. Santiago de Compostela was captured and sacked by the French during the Napoleonic Wars. As a result, the remains attributed to the apostle were lost for near a century, hidden inside a cist in the crypts of the cathedral of the city. The excavations conducted in the cathedral during the 19th and 20th centuries uncovered a Roman cella memoriae or martyrium, around which grew a small cemetery in Roman and Suevi times which was later abandoned. This martyrium, which proves the existence of an old Christian holy place, has been sometimes attributed to Priscillian, although without further proof. Economy. Santiago's economy, although still heavily dependent on public administration, cultural tourism, industry, and higher education through its university, is becoming increasingly diversified. New industries such as timber transformation, the automotive industry, and telecommunications and electronics have been established. Banco Gallego, a banking institution owned by Novic Galicia, has its headquarters in downtown Raia do hectare-cubed Horario. Tourism is very important thanks to the Way of St. James, particularly in Holy Compostelan years. Following the Xunta's considerable investment and hugely successful advertising campaign for the Holy Year of 1993, the number of pilgrims completing the route has been steadily rising. More than 272,000 pilgrims made the trip during the course of the Holy Year of 2010. Following 2010, your next Holy Year will not be for another 11 years. Outside of Holy Years, the city still receives a remarkable number of pilgrims. Editorial Compostela owns daily newspaper El Correo Gallego, a local TV, and a radio station. Galician language online news portal Galicia Ox is also based in the city. Televisia Cubden de Galicia, the public broadcaster corporation of Galicia, has its headquarters in Santiago. Way of St. James. The legend that St. James found his way to the Iberian Peninsula, and had preached there is one of a number of early traditions concerning the missionary activities and final resting places of the Apostles of Jesus. Although the 1884 bull of Pope Leo XIII Omnipotens Deus accepted the authenticity of the relics at Compostela, the Vatican remains uncommitted as to whether the relics are those of St. James the Greater, while continuing to promote the more general benefits of pilgrimage to the site. Legends. According to a tradition that can be traced back at least to the 12th century, when it was recorded in the Codex Calixtinus, St. James decided to return to the Holy Land after preaching in Galicia. There he was beheaded, but his disciples managed to get his body to Jaffa, where they found a marvelous stone ship which miraculously conducted them and the apostles' body to Iria Flavia, back in Galicia. There, the disciples asked the local pagan Queen Loba for permission to bury the body. She, annoyed, decided to deceive them, sending them to pick a pair of oxen she allegedly had by the Pico Sacro, a local sacred mountain where a dragon dwelt, hoping that the dragon would kill the Christians, but as soon as the beast attacked the disciples, at the side of the cross, the dragon exploded. Then the disciples marched to pick the oxen, which were actually wild bulls which the queen used to punish her enemies. But again, at the side of the Christians' cross, the bulls calmed down, and after being subjected to a yoke they carried the apostles' body to the place where now Compostela is. The legend was again referred with minor changes by the Czech traveller Jaroslav Lev Ro 3/4 meter L, in the 15th century. The relics were said to have been later rediscovered in the 9th century by a hermit named Pelagius, who after observing strange lights in a local forest went for help after the local bishop, Theodemir of Iria, in the west of Galicia. The legend affirms that Theodemir was then guided to the spot by a star, drawing upon a familiar myth element, hence Compostela was given an etymology as a corruption of komposഃtɛla, field of stars. In the 15th century, the red banner which guided the Galician armies to battle, was still preserved in the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, in the centre St. James riding a white horse and wearing a white cloak, sword in hand. The legend of the miraculous armed intervention of St. James, disguised as a white knight to help the Christians when battling the Muslims, was a recurrent myth during the High Middle Ages. Establishment of the shrine. The 1,000-year-old pilgrimage to the shrine of St. James in the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela is known in English as the Way of St. James and in Spanish as the Camino de Santiago. Over 100,000 pilgrims travel to the city each year from points all over Europe and other parts of the world. The pilgrimage has been the subject of many books, television programs, and films. notably Brian Sewell's The Naked Pilgrim produced for the British television channel Channel 5 and the Martin Sheen Emilio Estevez collaboration The Way. Pre-Christian legends, as the lowest lying land on that stretch of coast, the city's site took on added significance. Legends supposed of Celtic origin made it the place where the souls of the dead gathered to follow the sun across the sea. Those unworthy of going to the land of the dead haunted Galicia as the Santa Compa ±a Stadia. In popular culture, Santiago de Compostela is featured prominently in the 1988 historical fiction novel Sharp's Rifles, by Bernard Cornwell, which takes place during the French invasion of Galicia, January 1809, during the Napoleonic Wars. Main sites: Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, 12th century Colegiata de Santa Maria del Czar, 16th century Baroque Abbey of San Marta en Canario, University of Santiago de Compostela, Centro Galego de Arte Contemporánea, designed by Álvaro Siza Vieira, Parque de San Domingos de Benaval, redesigned by Eduardo Chillida and Álvaro Siza Vieira, City of Culture of Galicia, designed by Peter Eisenman. Transport: Santiago de Compostela is served by Santiago de Compostela Airport and a rail service. The town is linked to the Spanish high-speed railway network. On July 24, 2013 there was a serious rail accident near the city in which 79 people died and at least 130 were injured when a train derailed on a bend as it approached Compostela station. International relations. Twin towns are sister cities. Santiago de Compostela is twinned with, see also, Auditorio Monte do Gozo, Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, Marsica en Compostela, Order of Santiago, Santiago de Compostela derailment, thus Hui copyright RFANAS, references. This article incorporates text from a publication now in the public domain, Chisholm, Hugh, ed. Encyclopaedia Britannica. Cambridge University Press, Meakin, Annette M. B. Galicia. The Switzerland of Spain. London, Methuen and Company. Notes. External links: Hitchhiker's Handbook City Guide, official website of the Cathedral and Santiago de Compostela, City Council of Santiago de Compostela, Santiago Tourism, Santiago's basketball team, Santiago de Compostela, Journey's End by The Guardian,